Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday afternoon. Hope yours is going well. We've got another Seahawks video to get to today, but first, we have 2,360 subscribers to the channel. I want to give a shout out to all the subscribers, and of course, special tip of the cap goes to the channel members, especially elite channel members HaWKxXAsYLuM, Brandon Mikel, Rip, Scott Todd, Hasher for MVP, VGK Tiger 75, and Salacious Crumb. Excuse me. All right. Still no offensive coordinator in Seattle. We still don't know who we're going to get. We still don't know who's going to be calling plays for this offense next year. It's a big old mystery, so we're going to continue to look at interesting candidates. However, it's very possible that today's look may be the last one I do in this capacity, at least until I get some indication that we're actually looking at some people. I don't want to waste time, my time or your time, making videos about some random guy that the team probably doesn't even know exists, much less is considering for the position. So, yeah. If I start hearing names, I will continue to make videos, but short of that, I'm going to attempt to move to other topics, simply because I don't want to spend a 15-minute video talking about getting somebody like Mike Leach when there's like a 1% chance we're even considering him. We should stay in the realm of what seems realistic. So today's offensive coordinator profile may be the last one we do for a little bit. As we bring in more names and more people, I will be discussing it. But we're going to go ahead and make this the potential stopping point for now. Shane Waldron of the Rams. Like I said, if we hear more names going forward, I will discuss them in videos like this. But for the moment, Shane Waldron is the only guy who I have heard any indication that Seattle is interested in, who I haven't discussed yet. So, Shane Waldron. First, the man is 41 years old and has a decent amount of coaching experience despite that relatively young age, and has been around some reasonably impressive stuff, so it is feasible that he ends up having head coaching aspirations at some point. He may look to become a head coach in 4 to 5 years, maybe even a little sooner than that if things go well for him in the next couple years. So, again, this is another guy. You get him. If he's good as your offensive coordinator, maybe he can be your head coach. And then if he's a good head coach, you've got a head coach for decades maybe. So Shane Waldron does have that upside of being maybe a guru. He has the opportunity to be the next offensive NFL genius. And if that happens, hopefully it happens here. So there's that. Now, as for his resume, I have some hangups here. And a decent chunk of his resume can't even really be discussed. He was a coach in, I think, the former UFL back in the early 2010s. He might have been a coach in the AFL at one point, and I'm not going to bother trying to ascribe meaning to what happened in those leagues because they have very little resemblance to the NFL. So what we're going to do is skip ahead to his 2012 stint, 2012-2013 stint as the tight ends coach for the University of Massachusetts Minutemen. Now, the UMass Minutemen are a small Division 1A football team, but they are Division 1A. They are a legitimate college football program. So there's something we can learn here about Shane Waldron. So in 2012, he became their tight ends coach. The Minutemen offense was the worst in college football. 1-11. They were one of the worst teams in the country. They scored less than 13 points a game, which was the worst offense in the league. And as for tight ends, they had one tight end of note named Blanchflower, who had 43 receptions for 464 yards and 2 touchdowns, which was a pretty good total given the fact that the Minutemen offense was so pathetic, but not exactly a great start to his resume. And moving on to the next year, 2013, it really doesn't get better quickly. They again go 1-11. They again only manage, this time, 12 points a game, not even 12 points a game, and they're one of the worst offenses in college football. This year, they do have a little bit more diversity at the position of tight end. Blanchflower came back and had a decent year, a lesser year than he did the year before, but they also had a couple other tight ends. They had Miller catch 5 passes and Howard catch 4. So little bit of passable production from the tight end position, I suppose. For an offense this bad, this is actually a pretty substantial part of their production. So 2 years as the tight end coach for the Minutemen. Can't really say it was working out great. At this point, he got promoted or moved laterally, depending on your perspective, to offensive line coach for the UMass Minutemen. And to evaluate this, we're just going to take a look at the overall offensive production. He was the offensive line coach for 2 years. This first year, they went 3-9, which actually represents a big step for them. And their offense improved massively to almost 27.5 points a game, which is 78th in the nation. So a little below average, but a huge improvement over the previous year. They threw for over 300 yards a game, 310 yards a game actually, and ran the ball for nearly 110 yards per game. So a respectable, credible offense in the NCAA. The next year, the team went 3-9 again, but the offense took a step back, only scoring 22 points a game, which was not even in the top 100, near the bottom of the NCAA. Their pass yards per game dropped to 258, still not horrible, but not really good. And their rushing yards per game went up to 142 yards. So overall, the offensive production over these 2 years was pretty bad, but not as terrible as it had been the last 2 years. So whatever meaning you want to try to ascribe to that, be my guest. Let's go ahead and take a look at what he's done in the NFL, because in 2016, he got a promotion. He got called up to the big leagues, became the offensive quality control coach for the Redskins. And he only was here for 1 year, and the Redskins this year went 8-7-1, so they were slightly above average, or basically average. They had a slightly above average offense, about 25 points a game, and they were one of the league leaders in passing yards. I think this was Kirk Cousins' second to last year in Washington. He threw for almost 300 yards a game. That was second in the league. And they had a below-average rush attack in Washington, 106 yards per game. All right. And now he returned to his former position as tight end coach, this time for an NFL team. He went to the Rams and became their tight end coach. We know that the Rams in 2017 went 11-5 and had the number one offense in the NFL, almost 30 points a game. However, Shane Waldron was their tight end coach, and they didn't get much out of their tight ends. Tyler Higbee was their number one. He only had 25 catches for less than 300 yards and a touchdown. And Gerald Everett had 16 catches for 250 yards and 2 touchdowns. So they got combined about close to 550 yards from their tight ends and 45 catches total, maybe, if you add in some of the scrub reserve tight ends. But they really didn't lean on their tight ends all that much for their league-leading offense. So not exactly a tremendous feather in the cap of Shane Waldron for his resume. Now, at this point, 2018, Shane Waldron actually took over a coaching position that you can ascribe some obvious meaning to. You can clearly and definitively point to what he did over these 3 years and say he probably had a significant hand in it. So we're going to take a look at what he did as a passing game coordinator for 3 years in LA for the Rams, and we're going to really try to parse some meaning out, because admittedly, it's tough to parse out meaning out of what happened for the UMass Minutemen, or if you're a tight end coach for the Rams. But this, maybe. So this first year, the Rams go 13-3, make the Super Bowl, 33 points a game, which is second in the league, only behind the Chiefs. And as for their passing attack, it was really good. They passed the ball 570 times, which was average, slightly above average, but they were top 5 in yards, 4,500. They were top 8 in touchdowns, 32, and they had 12 interceptions, which was 12th. So it was a very efficient and effective passing attack, and it helped drive this Rams team to the Super Bowl. The next year, things fall off a good amount. The Rams go 9-7. They score 24.5 points a game, which is 11th, so still above average. Their attempts go way up to third, 630. Their yards go about the same, actually, about 4,500 yards, which is fourth. But their touchdowns plummet to 22, and their interceptions jump up to 17, 19th, and 25th, respectively. So the passing attack is not nearly what it was the previous year. And this last year, even though the Rams improved because of their defense, their offense was actually kind of bad. They went 10-6, but they only scored 23.5 points a game, 22nd in the league, so bad. And their passing attack, slightly above average in attempts, 590, slightly above average in yards, a little over 4,000. Only 20 touchdowns and 14 interceptions, 26th and 23rd. So the passing attack this year was downright forgettable. This is not a very good passing attack at all. So that's the whole resume. And as you can see, there's a clear problem here. I know that people are excited about the possibility of getting Waldron, and to an extent I am too, but it has to be said, there's only two things that are impressive on this resume. One was his time as a Redskin in 2016, where the team was a great passing offense. And the other was this first year as the passing game coordinator. And I'm sorry, but we all know who's behind the Rams' offensive brilliance in 2018. And it's not Shane Waldron. It's clearly Sean McVay. So this resume is not exactly a powerhouse resume, the likes of which you see with guys like Mike Kafka or Joe Lombardi. So, yeah. With that being said, let's try to score him out. We're going to start with feasibility as always. I gave him a 9 out of 10. He would represent a clear and significant promotion to go from a passing game coordinator to an offensive coordinator with play calling duties. So he would love to come over here to be our offensive coordinator. His resume is not stellar, but the tree he comes out of, if you want to call the Sean McVay tree a tree yet, which might be a little early, but if you want to call the Sean McVay tree a tree, that's definitely a tree that you want to pluck from. So I think the team would be happy to have him. If I were the team, I would be a little hesitant just because he hasn't been around that much that was all that successful. But the fact that he comes from the McVay tree should count for a lot. So I say 9 out of 10. Fit with Pete Carroll. This is the lowest score I've given in this category yet. I said a 2 out of 10. He doesn't have a lot of experience, and a lot of his experience barely counts. Tight end coaching for the UMass Minutemen or offensive line coaching for the UMass Minutemen, it just doesn't count for much. Coaching in, joke leagues like the AFL and the UFL doesn't count for really anything. So his only real experience comes in the last 5 years where he's honestly been attached to pretty hit and miss offenses. And most of his resume is attached to the passing game. He comes from the Sean McVay tree. Not that Sean McVay doesn't understand how to run the ball sometimes or to have a balanced offense, but most of his resume is attached to strong passing games. Even when he was in Washington for this one good year, they passed the ball a lot and didn't run the ball that often. So I don't see this as being something Carroll likes. Fit with the modern NFL, I said a 7 out of 10, mostly because he's been under McVay for the past 3 years, and that should count for something. He should know a lot of the things that McVay does. That being said, if you take a look at the things he's been attached to specifically, the results are not that great. These last 2 years for the Los Angeles offense has been forgettable, and their passing offense has been occasionally been pretty bad. So you can put it on Goff if you want to, but still, it's not like there's a lot here he can hang his hat on and specifically point to say, I did that, and I'm proud of it. Overall score, I'm going to say a 7 out of 10. I was surprised at how underwhelmed I was by this resume. However, he has been around Sean McVay and comes from that tree, so I can't score him too much lower than a 7 out of 10. And at the very least, he should know the stuff McVay knows. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of here with that. That's Shane Waldron for you. I'm not crazy about it, but I would be on board if we got him. I would trust him to know enough about offensive football to put together a good offense in Seattle. And yeah, that's what I can say about that. See you guys in stream later. This will be the last offensive coordinator video until I get some concrete evidence that we're looking at a specific person that I haven't gone over yet. So until then, see you guys later. Peace out. Go Hawks. And that's my take on Shane Waldron.